Today we're going to continue with chapter 12, and we are going to still look at some surface area of prisms. Now, yesterday we talked about when we had bases that are rectangles and squares. Today we're going to talk about when we have triangles. So once again, we want to review quickly our two-dimensional area. Before spring break, we reviewed how to find area of a triangle. So I want to review that quickly with you again today. So notice that I have two different pictures of triangles here. Notice that one of them is a right triangle and one of them is not. To find area of a triangle, regardless of what kind of triangle you have, you want to do 1/2 the area of the base times the height, or think of it as base times height divided by 2. Now, what classifies a base and a height? It needs to have a right angle. So when you have a right triangle, the angle's already there and it's a right angle already. So one of those sides is the base and one of those sides is the height. And so then you have everything that you need when you have a right triangle. If you don't have a right angle within your triangle, then your goal is to first create a right angle. So I'm going to drop an altitude, and that then becomes the height of my triangle. But the base is the entire side to which you dropped that height to. So that would then be your base times height divided by 2. Yesterday, we looked at how we could take like a tissue box and break it apart. It's the same thing here. A triangular prism means that you're going to have triangles for your base. A prism still has rectangles because remember, those faces that connect the bases are rectangles. So notice that here on the left is a picture of a triangular prism. If I was to break apart that prism, notice that I have two triangles. Those represent the bases. And then you've got, in this case, 3 rectangles because there are 3 sides of a triangle. So it makes sense that I need 3 sides connecting those 2 triangles together. So while we could always take apart a triangular prism and then find the area individually of these 2 different right triangles and then of these 3 rectangles, there is a much faster way to find the total surface area. So if I'm looking at a triangular prism, surface area, it's going to look very familiar to yesterday's. It's 2 times area of the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height of the prism. So once again, that big B stands for the area of the base. And so we have to make sure that we can correctly identify the shape of the base. P stands for the perimeter of the base. And then H stands for the height of the prism. So then it's nice that when you have a triangular prism, because rectangles are the sides, that means that the triangle, that has to be your base. Okay, so notice that I would have to figure out, in this case, if I don't have a right angle, I'd have to drop down an altitude in order to then figure out what the area of that triangle is. But notice that the height in this picture is actually that top piece here. It's connecting those 2 triangles together. All right, so given the prism, we're going to identify the following: the shape of the base, the perimeter of the base, the area of the base, and the height of the prism. Well, hopefully we notice that in this picture, there are shapes other than rectangles. So if we can identify the shape that isn't a rectangle, that's going to be the shape of the base. And hopefully we're all okay with the fact that there is, what I see, a triangle. And so here, a triangle has to be the shape of the base. So then to find the perimeter of the base, that means that a triangle has 3 sides. I need to add up the 3 sides that form the triangle. So notice 15 is one of the sides, and because this triangle is actually indicated to us as a right triangle, 15 is the hypotenuse. Notice that 9 is up here at the top. Well, remember, opposite sides of rectangles are congruent, so that means that it's 9 down here. That 2 has nothing to do with the shape of the triangle. So this third side of the triangle down here, it doesn't have a length. But hopefully we notice that, hey, if I have a right triangle where the hypotenuse is 15 and one of my sides is 9, well, they're both multiples of 3. 9 is 3 times 3. 15 is 3 times 5, so hopefully we're okay with over here. This has to be 3 times 4. This is a 3, 4, 5 family. So the missing side there is 12. So perimeter means I'm adding 9, 12, and 15 together. So when I add those three numbers, we find out that our perimeter is 36. And remember, our units are meters. So when we're adding things up, the units don't change. So 36 meters is our perimeter. Area of the base, we need to find the base and the height, and we're going to divide it by 2, or take 1/2 the base times the height. Remember, base and height deal with the right angle. 15 doesn't have anything to do with forming the right angle. The sides of 9 and 12 do. So 9 and 12 are going to be the base and the height of this. So 9 times 12 divided by 2, or 1/2 times 9 times 12, tells us that the area is 54. And because we're finding area, our meters have to be squared. The height of the prism is what connects those two bases together. Well, notice the number that we have not used yet is 2. That's connecting those two triangles together. 2 meters is the height of the prism. So now let's start actually calculating total surface area. So once again, total surface area, 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height. I have to know what is the shape of the base. So if we're looking at our diagram, notice that I see rectangles in this picture, but I also see triangles. And so because we have a shape other than a rectangle, that means that the triangle is the shape of our base. And the nice thing about this picture is that there's already a right angle in there. So if I want to find the area of the base, once again, it's 1/2 the base times the height, or the two sides that form the right angle. Notice that 17 is the side that's across from the right angle, so I can't use that number to find the area. Notice that 15 at the top means that 15 is also right below it because opposite sides of that rectangle are congruent. 9 doesn't have anything to do with that side of the triangle. So notice that in my triangle down here at the bottom, the hypotenuse is 17, one of the legs is 15. Hopefully we notice that it's a family. It's an 8, 15, 17 family. So 8 and 15 are the two sides that are forming the right angle. And so 1/2 times 8 times 15 tells us that 60 is going to be the area of that base. The perimeter of the base is us adding up the three sides that form that triangle. So that would be 8, 15, and 17 all added together. So 8 plus 15 plus 17 gives us a perimeter of 40. The height of that prism is what's connecting the two triangles together. Notice the number we have not used yet is 9. So now that I have all my numbers, I'm going to substitute them in to find my total surface area. So 2 times 60 plus, then we'll have 40 times 9. So if I carefully type all of that into my calculator, we will see that our total surface area is 480. And then once again, we want our units, and they have to be squared when we're talking about total surface area. So 480 centimeters squared. Okay, the last example here, we once again want to find the total surface area. So 2 times the area of the base plus the perimeter of the base times the height. So I have to know what is the shape of the base. And I see that there is a shape other than a rectangle. And so because there is a triangle in this picture, that is going to be my base. Now notice that to find the area of that base, I need to have a right angle with that triangle. And right now I don't have that. So I'm going to focus on the triangle up here at the front. And notice that if I drop an altitude, I have the base. The base is 24. So I already have 1/2 times 24. I just have to figure out what is the height. Remember, if that side of the triangle is 13, if it's 13 over there, it's 13 up here because opposite sides of a rectangle are congruent. So essentially, this is an isosceles triangle. When I dropped that altitude, it's going to bisect that base. 24 cut in half is 12. So hopefully we see that I have a triple. I have a 5, 12, 13 family. So 5 is the height of that isosceles triangle. So when I multiply 1/2 times 24 times 5, the area of that triangle is 60. The perimeter of that base, so the perimeter of the triangle, are the 3 sides of the triangle. So notice that it's isosceles. That means 2 of the sides are congruent. Both those legs were 13. The base was 24. So if I add those 3 numbers together, we get the perimeter to be 50. Now remember, H stands for the height of the prism. What connects those 2 triangles together? Well, it's the number we have not used yet. That would be 50. So now that I have all this information, I'm going to substitute it in very carefully. So we'll have 2 times 60 plus, then we'll have 50 times 50. So when I carefully type that into my calculator, I find out that we get 2,620. And then since my units are kilometers, we have to square them because we're talking about total surface area. And so that is us doing surface area of prisms, specifically with a base of a triangle.